our physics simulation running quite nicely. So what we're going to do before we run it any further, we're going to go to our scene properties for the physics. Let's go to our rigid body world and let's make the speed 2 times as fast. And let's go to frame 1 again. Let's hit the space bar and let's see what that looks like. So you can see it's all working really beautifully. So we now kind of are pretty much done with this. We're just going to now make it look a little bit cooler and then we're going to cache things out. So let's go Shift A. Let's add in a plane. Let's scale that way up and then go S, Y, scale it onto Y a little bit. Tab into edit mode and let's just select these 2 back verts and go E to extrude and Z. And then we're just going to grab this edge here, go Control B to bevel it. You can do this however you want. I'm going to go something like that, tab back out, Control A, apply that scale, right click and go Shade Smooth. Let's go to our front view. Oops, so if you go to your front orthographic view, actually, this thing here should be like that. Okay, so I've messed that up a little bit. So I'm just going to rotate it around like that. So in our front orthographic view, we want to see this. So we're going to go Shift A. Let's just add in a camera, move it up, and let's move it back to here. Let's go into our camera view by pressing 0 on a number pad. So here we have this. Let's go to frame 1. We can now see these spheres. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my camera settings and make the focal length 90. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go I, with my camera selected, I'm going to press I and go location rotation to add in a keyframe on frame 1. And then I'm just going to hit my spacebar and play this simulation. And I'm going to turn on auto keying. And you can see I'm now on frame 24. And as I keep pausing and playing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move around with these spheres. And what you might have to do at certain points is just rotate so you can actually see it. And because I've got the auto keying enabled here, it'll automatically do that. So I'm going to come back to 24. I'm going to rotate it down, move it up a little bit. You can do this however you want, but just make sure you play the animation. And as it's rolling down, you move your camera accordingly. Like so. I'm going to come to frame 70 over here, move it down. And you might have to go back to frame 1 and just run that again. But the idea here is just to run your simulation and then take your camera as it's going along and just auto keying it along with the physics here. So you can see here it comes at about frame 100. It's going down a little bit more. So I might want to come down like this. You can see it's coming through over here. So I might want to pause, bring it down a little bit, hit the spacebar again. And here you can see it comes to the bottom. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit and maybe rotate the camera down. You kind of get the idea here, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to turn off the auto keying. Let's make the frames here 220. And let's now come to our scene properties and under our rigid body world, let's go to the cache and make it 220 to match up with over here. And let's just bake this into our scene. It's really important that you bake this in, so it will render when we render, but now you should have this. Okay, how cool is that? What we're going to do now is we're just going to add in some very basic things. Well, you can see here that the actual spheres are just falling through the floor here. And what we forgot to do was grab this floor and just go to our physics and give that a rigid body and make it passive and also make it a mesh. And we're unfortunately going to have to go back to our physics and just under here, delete the bake and just bake it again, unfortunately. So I'm just going to let that quickly finish and then we'll get back into our materials and lighting. So it is now done finished caching and this is what we have. You can see here, our camera's animated, our physics are working here, and now it interacts with this plane over here and everything kind of rolls back, which is what we want. So now we're going to go to our world settings. Let's give this a sky texture. And let's also go to our render and just make it cycles. Let's go to our render settings here. Let's make this render amount 50. You can set it higher if you want, but I have the denoiser enabled, so that's gonna work okay. And we're gonna go Control B while we're in camera view. Just drag over the camera to limit the render to the camera view. And now if we press Z and go rendered, and we go back to our world settings, we can see that sky texture we added is over here, but what we need to do is we need to actually go to the sun rotation and just rotate it till the lighting looks like what we want. I think that looks pretty cool. I'm just going to come here to the strength and take it down to 0.4, And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Shift A. I'm just going to add in a light. This is an area light. I'm going to go G, Z, take it up. And I'm going to increase the strength quite a bit and then increase the size. And let's see what that looks like. I'm going to go Z and go rendered. And this is up to you to determine how much or how little you want to do with your lighting. But I might even go back to my world settings and just make it even lighter on that sky texture. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to bump it up even more. Maybe duplicate it, bring one in from this side over here, like that. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's looking pretty cool. So now what we need to do is just add our materials. So let's go and select our backdrop here. Let's go to our shading workspace, give it a new material. And then under the base color here, let's just drag that and type in checker and get the checker texture. And now we have that. You can mess around with the scale however you want. But this is what we have, and now you can press Z, go rendered, and you can see that. And now let's select this spirally thing over here. Let's just go new, give that a material. And I'm just going to make this under the base color slightly less white. And also make it a bit more reflective by bringing down the roughness. And then I'm going to select these metal pole things over here, give them a new material, make them kind of darker, and make them metallic. I'm going to bring down the roughness, and I'm also going to select these two spheres here, and I'm just going to give them that same material. So if you now go into rendered view, you can see this is what we have. And then all we have to do is select these spheres over here, again, all of them. Holding in shift, just select one of them and then give that a material. Let's just call it balls. And what we're going to do, we're going to go Shift A, search and get an object info, and then plug the random into the base color. And then if we go Shift A, search and type in color, we can get a color ramp and place it here. Let's change this to constant, and now we can take these tabs here and we can make them whatever colors we want. Okay, like this. Let's just go with 2 colors for now. And then we're going to go Control L and we're just going to link all of those. So now all of these have that same material as this main active one. And if you now go into our camera view and we go Z and go rendered, all of them have this material, and you can see it's just one material, but it's randomly adding color, and we can add as many of these tabs as we want, changing the color, trying different things. This is completely up to you how you want to approach this, but maybe go for a nice lime green, and it's pretty cool. Maybe a little bit less orange, drag this down. But you guys kind of get the idea here. And then let's just go and bring this roughness down. And there we have it. Now you can kind of just pause at a specific shot. You can go to your render settings. Let's enable motion blur and let's save. And now let's go render and render image and see what this looks like. And there we have it. This is going to look really cool once you render it out as an animation. And the way you can do that is to go to your output settings, select a folder on your computer, then change the file format to video. And under the encoding, you can change it to MP4. Just make sure to save and then go render, and then render animation, and it'll render it out to your destination that you chose. So that has been this tutorial. I really hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'll be uploading this to Patreon, and I will see you guys next time for another Blender tutorial. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys step by step how to make this really satisfying animation in Blender. Now this one here that you're looking at is loopable. I made this yesterday and I thought I might as well do a tutorial on it. So this here is the actual blend file that I made. You can see here, this is my original. Now I'm going to be showing you guys exactly how to make this, with the exception of some of these materials and the background plants. The overall idea here, I'm going to show you step by step how to make. The only differences with my original here is I just added in some background plants and I just made a little bit more, put a little bit more effort in with the materials. But I'm going to be showing you guys pretty much the exact same thing on how to make this sort of effect. We're going to have a canvas thing going on here where we have a so-called brush painting onto the canvas using dynamic paint, and that's going to give us this really cool effect. So this is something you want to learn. Keep watching, and as always, I'm going to be adding this blend file, my original one here, to the Patreon. So let's jump into it and have some fun. So let's jump inside of Blender, and what we're going to do, we're going to select all of the default objects and just press delete to get rid of them. And we're going to add in a cylinder. So we're going to go Shift A, we're going to go to our mesh options, let's add in a cylinder. And with the cylinder active, we're going to tab into edit mode. So inside of edit mode, with all of this active, what we're going to do is we're going to go RX90 and we're going to press enter. So in our front view, we should see it like this. We've rotated it 90 degrees on the X. We're then going to go SY and scale it on the Y, about this much. Then we're going to go Control R and add in a cut in the middle, a loop. So just left click twice and then press V to cut it and just move this bit to the side. Control L while all this is active and go X and delete verts. So now we just have this bit here and we're going to go and give this a mirror modifier. And let's enable the Y axis and let's enable clipping. So with clipping enabled, they shouldn't pull apart. So now we're going to just bring this maybe a little bit closer like so. And we're going to just model a very simple wheel here. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to our face select mode, select this face. We're going to go E to extrude, S to scale. Let's go in about this much. And this is purely just decoration. There's no functional purpose to this. And we're going to go E to extrude, S to scale. Let's go about this much. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go E to extrude, S to scale one more time. And then we're going to deselect and go Shift, Alt, left click on this edge here to loop select these faces. E to extrude and extrude it in a little bit like so. And then select this face here and then go E to extrude and extrude all the way in till it clips here in the middle and go X and delete that face. Now we have this shape here. We're going to go to our edge select, Shift, Alt, left click on this edge, this one in here, all of these ones that are a sharp corner in the inside and in the outside. Then go Control B to bevel, so Control B or Command B, and then roll your middle mouse button to add in some segments, tab back out, and then give this a subdivision surface modifier, right click and go shade smooth. So now we have this wheel over here. Go to your front orthographic view and then go Shift A, go add in a cylinder, tab into edit mode, and let's select this top face and delete that face. And let's select this bottom face here and let's go S to scale it in. And let's select the whole thing by pressing A and then go S, Z and scale it down to Z. And then G, Z, move it down. We're still in edit mode, so we're going about here. So we have that origin point here at the top. And then we're just going to select this bottom face and we're going to go Control B to bevel. Let's just bevel it like this. So now we have a nice object here we can use. We're going to tab back out, right click and go shade smooth. And then in our front orthographic view, we're going to go S to scale that down. And then G, Z, move it down to here. And let's scale it up a little bit. So we want something that looks like this. Now we want to duplicate it all the way around. So let's enable our 3D cursor for the pivot transform. And we have our cursor here in the middle of our world. So now with this guy active, we can go Shift D to duplicate. And then we can go R45 and press enter. So we've duplicated and rotated 45 all in one shot. So now if we go Shift R, we can repeat that action and we can do it till it completes around like this. And because it's 360 degrees around a circle, because we did 45, it's going to do this exact amount of times and it's all going to be even spacing like so. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to select this loop here, the inside wheel. And let's just apply that mirror modifier and that subdiv. And then let's inverse the selection to select these other guys. Holding and shift select the wheel again and then go Control J and join this all as one object. Now we have this wheel. You can tab into edit mode. You can see this is what we have. It's looking pretty cool. So let's tab back out and let's go into our front orthographic view and just go G, Z, hold in Control and just snap it till it comes sitting on the floor here. So the bottom of this wheel, not the spike, but the bottom of the wheel is sitting here on our floor like that. Okay, so now we're going to go Shift A and we got our mesh options, add in a plane. And with this plane, we're going to tab into edit mode and let's just go S, X and go 12 like so, just to scale it 12 times along the X. And let's go Control R and let's add in a loop here in the middle and let's roll our middle mouse button to add in some more segments. And we want to make it about as many that'll give us some squares. Okay, so now you can see instead of this being a rectangle, it's roughly made out of these little squares here, like so. We're going to press A to select everything. We're going to right click and just go subdivide. And then we're going to come here and just increase the subdivision. And let's go to about 6. And then we're going to go to our top view. And we want to be efficient here. So we're just going to select these guys here. Okay, so we don't want to subdivide everything the same amount. So just these guys here, we're going to right click, subdivide, and then we're going to go right click, subdivide again, and then right click and subdivide again. We want a really fine kind of grid here. Tab back out, because remember we're having displacement here. And what we're going to do, we're going to, at this point, just make sure to save as we're going along. Always a good idea. And now we're going to animate this wheel. This is actually really easy. So let's go into front orthographic view. And in our front view, let's move this drag this timeline up. We want to be in frame 1, and with this wheel active, we're going to press I, and we're going to insert a location and a rotation keyframe. We're then going to come exactly to frame 100, and I've already worked out the maths here, so this will work properly for us. And when you go N to bring up our properties panel, we're going to go to item, and over here, we're going to come and type in on the X a value of -7, like so. So let's move -7 meters on the X. And we're going to come over here to the Y value, and we're going to go -360 and type enter. And then we're going to go I to insert a keyframe. And then hovering over this location, we're going to press I to insert a keyframe. And now you can see both of these location and rotation values have this yellow, which means there's a keyframe. So what's going to happen now, between frame 1 and frame 100, it's going to rotate like this and stop right over here, which is perfect. Okay, and it shouldn't slide or drag, it should just be working really well. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue here. We're going to select this keyframe on frame 100, Shift D to duplicate it and drag it exactly to frame 110, just to give us a little bit of a pause where it stops. And then we're going to have it rolling back exactly the same amount, but in the opposite direction. So let's select this first keyframe, Shift D to duplicate, and let's drag that all the way to frame 190. I said 190, we actually want to drag this up to 210, okay? And the reason is because we want, obviously we have 100 frames in the first round, it pauses quickly, and then obviously we want 100 frames going back for things to match up, right? Otherwise it's not going to be the same. So we have this here, a little pause in the middle, and then over 100 frames it rolls back. So let's go to frame 1, hit the space bar, and let's see what it looks like. So here we have it rolling, it quickly stops, and there it goes back. And by default, we should have some nice Bezier curves on this. Let's just quickly go to the graph editor. We can see by default, that's the interpolation, which is good. So let's go back to the timeline, but it should do that by default anyway. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in our dynamic paint. So let's select our paintbrush object here, which is what it's going to be called in this tutorial. And let's go over here to our physics properties. Let's give it dynamic paint, and let's make this a brush. All we have to do here is add brush, and that's all we have to do for this guy. But now we're going to go to the canvas. This is what's being painted on. We're also going to give this a dynamic paint. We're going to leave it as canvas this time and go add canvas. And the format here, make sure that's vertex. We're not working with sequences. And we're going to leave these values here because we are working with 1 to 250 frames. But the surface type, we want to make displace, because we're working with displacement here. And we'll get to this dissolve in a little second, but we're also going to enable that in a while. But for now, we're just going to go over to our modifier properties. And now we're going to give this a displace. And we're going to click new. And now you can see this is what's happening. If we actually hit our, go to frame 1 and we hit the spacebar, look at what's happening here. Now it's way off, so what we have to do here is come to this mid-level and drag it all the way down to 0, and now that should be fine. Now you can see, as it's going along here, it's leaving these indents here. So just right click and go shade smooth for that, and you kind of now see what's happening, so that's really cool. But the problem is here, if you go to frame 1 and hit the spacebar, it's leaving these indents here, but we want it to shrink again. We want it to go back into place. That just makes it a little bit more satisfying. So that's where we're going to go back to our physics. And with our canvas here active, we're going to go down and enable dissolve. Come to the drop down here, and the time here just means the amount of frames it takes for these things to dissolve. So let's go with a value of 90, just to test. Let's go to frame 1, hit the spacebar. And now it means as these things get embedded over the period of 90 frames when they are made, they are going to go back to where they were. So let's just maybe go with something like 110 and try that out, because I don't want them to dissolve too quickly. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so there we have, that's looking a lot better. So let's go with 110 for now. And yeah, there we have it. That is our displacement. So now we're going to go Shift A. Let's just add in a plane. Let's scale that way up like this. Tab into edit mode and then go Control R to add in a loop here. Left click twice and then go Control B just to bevel it. And make a bevel that's the same width as our track here, and then go X and delete that face. So now we just have some planes here on the side. Tab back out. Then we're going to go Shift A. Let's just add in a cylinder. Let's take that cylinder and scale it way down, and then go SZ to scale it up on the Z, like so. Scale it down a bit more, and all we're going to do here is we're going to rotate this 90 degrees on the Y, and then move it in, and that's just going to fill the gap here. And this is just more of a decorative touch, but you guys can do it if you want to. I'm going to scale it along the X a bit more, and then I'm going to go Shift D and just move this one over to the side. So we have one over here, and I'm just going to join the two together, and I'm going to give them some smooth shading like so. So now we have these balls around the side, and that just brings everything together a little bit more. Now for my original, and I'll quickly show you guys here. For my original, I just added in some plant assets that I had. You can add whatever you want here for a decorative touch. So that's why I'm not covering this. It's completely up to you what models you want to add in just to fill in your scene a little bit, but you guys get the idea here, okay? So that's just the context of this project. So I'm just gonna put this over to the side, and let's continue here by adding in our camera. So we're gonna come in about here, and we're gonna go Shift A, let's add in a camera. And with this camera active, we're gonna hit 0 on a number pad, and we're gonna zoom back out. And what we're gonna do in our camera view, we're gonna go to our camera settings, and let's make the focal length 90. I like a nice shallow field of view here, like this. It also makes it easier to hide the unnecessary background and just more focus on the subject here, which is this rolling wheel. And we're gonna rotate it like this slightly and just get a position that we like. Now for me, I'm gonna just kind of rotate the camera a little bit, and I want it to be positioned in a way that we see the track and the wheel over here, like this, where it's starting. So the wheel's up here in the top corner here. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come over here to frame 1, and I'm gonna press I and insert a location and rotation for the camera. And then I'm going to take the same frame, and I'm going to go Shift D to duplicate it and drag it all the way to 250. And the reason I do that is because we want it to start and end the same way, so it's loopable. So what we're going to do between those two, we're going to now enable auto keying, and as our wheel is moving, we're going to come to about frame 40 in this case, and we're going to move up, and the auto keying is going to add in the keyframes, and we're just going to drag for our animation. And we're going to just go like this. Now, yes, you could add a curve. People always ask me, why don't you just add a curve or have the camera follow? Because I feel like having the camera stop, go is more like how somebody holding it by hand would look. And it's just fun to do anyway. I enjoy it. So if you want to add in an auto curve and make it follow automatically, go ahead. I just prefer to do it like this. So I'm just going to drag through, and you can see it stops at about this point here. And then it pauses. So I'm going to have a little bit of a hold here, maybe like this. And then it's going to start rolling back. I'm going to move it along. Bring it about here. So now you can see this is what we have. It's following along. It doesn't really matter how you animate your camera, as long as it ends and starts the same way, you should be fine. So now we can see here, that's what we have. I'm going to turn off auto keying. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go Control B and just drag over the camera to limit the render to the camera. Let's go over to our render settings. Let's make it cycles. I'm going to enable my GPU because I have one. And under the render amount, let's just make that 60, like so. Let's make sure to save. So now we're going to go Shift A. We're going to go add in a light. Let's add in an area light. Let's make the strength 140. And let's increase the size to 2. And I'm going to scale it along the X like so, and kind of bring it in a little bit more. And now let's go into a camera view and go Z and then go rendered. And this is what we have. So I might increase the strength to 300 in this case. And I might rotate it in a little bit and then duplicate it and have one coming in like this. So now we have it a little bit better lit. I'm also going to go to my world over here, properties, and let's just go where the color tab is. Let's make this a sky texture. And let's make the strength 0.05. And let's play around with the sun rotation. So I'm going to go with something like that. That looks good to me for now. And now we have a nice lit up scene. So let's go over to our shading workspace. And now I'm going to show you how we make these cool materials. So first of all, let's select our canvas here. And let's go to frame 1 by hitting Shift and the left arrow button. And that should take us to frame 1. And if we hit the space bar, it's going to play. And we just need to see these little indents here because that's going to matter with this material. Let's click New to give it a material. And what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift A, search. We're going to type in geometry. We're going to get a geometry node. Let's plug the pointiness into the base color. And let's go Z over here and then go rendered. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift A, search, and get a color ramp. Place it over here. And let's drag these two values close together. Like so, until we can see the border forming where the angles are here. So it's using the pointiness value here. Wherever there's a certain amount of bend on the face normals, it's creating this effect here. I don't really know how to explain it, but that's what the pointiness is really good for, like adding edge wear and stuff like that. But you can see that's what we have. And now we can use this as a mask to blend two different materials. So let's take this principled shader here. Let's make this one a nice pink. And I'm just going to disconnect these two nodes here. Let's duplicate this principled shader, bring it down, and let's make this one a bright green. And then we're going to go Shift A, search, and get a mix shader. And let's take these two. We're going to plug the top principled into the top socket, the bottom principled into the bottom socket of the mix shader. And let's take this material output and plug the shader into that surface. So now these two are getting mixed, but we want to tell it to use the color here from the color ramp here as a factor. So it's actually using this pointiness value. And what I accidentally did here is I changed the subsurf color instead of the base color. So let me quickly do that. And I did the same thing down here. That's really embarrassing. But now you can see that's working. So now it's blending these two together using the geometry pointiness. And at this point, you could make these shaders whatever you want. So for my original, and I'll quickly show you guys. For my original, what I did, I'll quickly go to the shading, is I did that exact same thing. The only difference is here, I added some roughness into it to make it look a little bit, to have some texture, a little bit of bump, a little bit of unevenness, which just made it look really good. But you guys can spend as much time as you want doing that sort of thing. But the overall idea here is the exact same thing that I did with my original. So that's going to make it look really cool. Now that we have that in place, we're just going to take all of this and just copy it. So we're going to go Control-C and copy this. Then we're going to select our wheel and go New. We're going to delete these nodes and go Control-V just to paste it. So it doesn't want to paste, so I'm just going to click Paste. So I'm going to go back. So I'm just going to select all of these, right-click, and just once again copy. And hopefully this time it works. So I'm just going to right-click and go Paste, and here we have it. And now on the wheel here, you can leave these colors looking the same. I think that looks really cool. The only difference is here, I'm going to come and change this to maybe like an orange, and then change this one here maybe to like a grayish kind of color. You can do whatever you want. You can swap these around. You can make it metallic. I think that's what I did for my original. So I'm going to make both of these metallic. But you guys get the idea here. So now we have a nice looking material there. And at this point, you can select this floor over here. You can give that its own material. I gave this a checkerwood material, which by the way, I just recently covered on my channel. So you can check that out. It's an very easy procedural checkerboard material. So check out my channel, you'll see it on there. I just made it very recently. In fact, there should be a video before this video, and you can learn how to make that if you want to, or you can add any material that you want. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just give this just a basic material for now, just to demonstrate. Maybe make it a little bit darker. I might just give it a checker texture actually. Something like this, just increase the scale. You guys kind of get the idea here. This is more just about making this effect here. So once you're happy with it all, what you can do is you can go to back to your layout. I'm going to select my camera. I'm just going to go to my camera settings, enable the depth of field, click on the little eyedropper, and then select this cylinder. and then just bring this f-stop amount down, just so we have this nice soft focus on this instead of the background. And that's going to make it look a lot cooler. We're also going to go to our render and settings and just enable the motion blur, so we get some nice motion blur when this is rendering. And we also have to cache this out. So let's select the canvas again. Let's go over to our physics, and what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the cache, and we're just going to click on bake, and we're just going to bake this into our blend file, and then we're going to save. So now it's baked in, and let's get a nice shot here. Let's go render, and let's render image, and let's just see what this looks like. And here we have it. So like I said, this is the exact same thing I did with my original. The only difference is here I just did a little bit more with my materials, and I added in some nice background plants. But you guys can easily do that. The main idea here is just how to make this cool effect here. So I really hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. I'm going to save this for now, and I'll just actually grab my original just so you guys can once again see it. Once again, the exact same thing I taught you guys today. All I did is I spent a little bit more time on the materials and added in some background assets. So this has been the tutorial. I will be uploading this original to my Patreon, so check that out in the description below. And I'll see you guys next time for another tutorial. In today's Blender tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this dynamic bowl sphere thing that kind of comes down onto this disc here and deforms it. It's very satisfying, and I just enjoyed it. I'm going to be showing you the exact process. Now this one here, I will say, is my original, so I added a bit more detail with the materials and the plants here, but today I'm going to show you how to do this exact same thing. So this original one here will be on my Patreon, but the result we're going to be getting today is pretty much the exact same thing. Just like I said, exact same thing. I'm just going to be showing you how to model all of this, do the dynamics, set it all up, and it's up to you to add in your own fancy textures and some assets if you want to make it your own thing. So let's jump into it, and I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial. So with a new scene opened up in Blender, let's select all of the default objects and just press delete. We're going to go Shift A. We're going to add in a cylinder. And with the cylinder active, we're going to tab into edit mode. We're going to go to our face select option, and we're going to select this top face. We're going to go I to inset, and let's go about this much. Then we're going to go E to extrude. We're going to extrude it down. And then we're going to do another I to inset. Let's inset it about this much, and then E to extrude up. And this is just a little decorative detail here. And we're going to go I to inset about this much, and then we're going to go E, and let's just extrude this up quite high. Okay, because we want this to be out of the view of camera later. And let's go X and just delete that face, and let's tab back out. And now we're going to go over to our modifiers, and we're going to give this a bevel modifier. We're going to come here to our amount, and let's increase the segment as well, so we have a nice fine bevel. Let's right click and go shade smooth. So now we have this part over here done. We're going to go into our front orthographic view. We're going to go Shift A. Let's add in a UV sphere. We're going to tab into edit mode with this UV sphere. We're going to go G, X, and move it along the X to the side. And under our modifiers, let's give this a mirror modifier. And now we have it over here because the origin point is in the middle still, because we moved it in edit mode. So it should be on the X axis by default since we're in our front orthographic view. So we have it about this position. Let's go G, Z, and let's bring it down to about here. And let's zoom out a bit. Let's scale it up. So we want it to be bigger than this part over here. So let's go about this much. And what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift A. We're going to add in a cylinder. And we're going to go G, and we're still in edit mode. We're going to bring it and put it right above the sphere over here, so it's in the middle. And then we're going to grab this top face. And we're going to go G, Z, and bring it down like so. And then we're going to go E to extrude and S to scale. And then we're going to go E to extrude. We're going to extrude it up to about here. And then we're going to go Shift D to duplicate this face, right click to let go. And then we're going to go R, Y, 90, and we're going to press enter. Then we're going to go G, X, and we're going to move it over like so. And then we're just going to go E to extrude and extrude it over like this. And then from this point, we can select this face and go I to inset it about this much, and then E to extrude. And we're going to extrude it all the way in like so. And so now it's a little bit close. We're going to press A to select everything, and we're just going to go G and move it out a little bit more. And let's go about here, and that's looking okay. Maybe even a little bit closer like that. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to select a face here, and holding in Shift select a face here. Control L and select these two parts, and then go P and separate selection, tab back out. Now with these two active, we're going to go ahead and apply that modifier to mirror, and holding in Shift we're going to select this one, and we're going to go Control J and we're going to join it, and we're going to right click and go Shade Smooth. Now these things are getting that same bevel. We're going to take these spheres and we're going to give them a subdivision surface modifier. We're going to right click, go Shade Smooth, and let's apply that subdivision surface modifier, and let's also apply that mirror. And now we're going to take these two, we're going to hold in Shift and select this and go Control J and join it. Now this is all one unit. Now we're going to go G, Z and just move it up about here. We're going to go Shift A now, we're going to add in a circle, tab into edit mode, go to your vertex option, and with all of this active, go S and then 4, so S4 and then press enter. And then we're going to go Control F, we're going to go Grid Fill, and then we're going to right click, we're going to go Subdivide. We're going to go here to our subdivision tab, and let's increase that a few times. So let's go with something like 7. We're going to tab back out, and let's grab this thing, and we're going to scale this down about this much. We're going to bring it down, and we want it big enough. This is completely up to you. We want it to not go outside, but we want it to be a little bit in the inside, like so. Then we're going to go G, Z, and just bring it up. And it's super important, because we scaled this in object mode and not edit mode, we should go Control A and make sure to apply that scale. That's very important because it's going to matter with the proximity. So now we have our two main elements. Let's quickly go Shift A, let's just add in a torus. S to scale it way up, and then tab into edit mode and then go Alt S and just scale it in along the normals and then scale it even a bit more. Now we have this nice rim, tab back out, right click, go Shade Smooth. And if you want to add in a simple environment, just select this sphere again, holding in Shift and Alt, just left click, going all the way around like this, just to select all of these verts, and then go Shift D to duplicate it, right click to let go, hit P and then separate selection, tab back out and then grab this duplication, circle.001, tab into edit mode and select everything by pressing A, E to extrude and S to scale and extrude it out. And now we have a floor like this. Tab back out, and the reason we don't want to just put something under here because this is going to get displaced. So you could add in a plane like this and scale it up, but then that's going to be in the way. So that's why we did it like that. So now we have our elements in place. What we're going to do now is we're going to select this, these balls here, these kind of whatever you want to call them. I'm not quite sure. I haven't come up with a name for them yet, but we want to go into our front view over here, and we just want to go into our front orthographic, and we want them just over the surface like this. And we're going to go onto frame 1 and go I, and we're going to insert a location and a rotation. Then we're going to come over to frame 40, and on frame 40 we're going to go G, Z, we're going to bring them in, and in our front view you can see they're dipping in about this much, and we're going to go I and insert a location and a rotation. And now we're going to go N to bring up our properties panel, and we're going to go to our item, and let's come all the way to frame 140, and let's select these spheres here, or these balls, rotating balls. And on 140 we're going to come here and we're going to go on the Z, we're going to type in 360, and over this we're going to press I to insert a keyframe. You can now see this is yellow, and we're going to come over here and press I to insert a keyframe as well for the location. So now if we go to frame 1 and we hit the spacebar, we're going to see this. So it rotates, and then what it's going to do, let's grab this 140 here, the keyframe. Let's go Shift D to duplicate it and drag it to 150, just so we have a little bit of a pause. And then we're going to grab the first keyframe here and go Shift D to duplicate it. And let's drag this all the way to 180, so it goes back, so it quickly spins back up like this. And now it's back where it started. We're going to leave it at 250 frames. But now that we have all of this in place, make sure you save. So I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm just going to save it to my desktop. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add our dynamic. So let's first of all select our, we still have it selected here. So if this is selected, let's go over to our physics properties. Let's give it a dynamic paint, and let's make it a brush. And let's go Add Brush. Now we're going to select our canvas. Let's go and give that a dynamic paint. And let's make this one a canvas, and let's go add canvas. And let's scroll down and change the surface type to displace. Now you're going to see here, it's already kind of working for us, which is really cool. So let's select this, with this still selected, let's just go right click and go shade smooth as well. So if you go to frame 1 and you hit this, that's what we have. How cool is that? So what we can also do is we can come here and click on this dissolve. So now what will happen is over 250 frames, as these things get displaced, they'll also dissolve. So it all goes back to where it was, like this. So you can see as it goes up, this all kind of goes back into place, which is exactly what we want. But we want this to happen a bit quicker, so let's make it 190. So it's 190 frames, and that'll help with making this loopable. So as this comes in, it does its thing, you can see here, goes back up and they just fade, which is exactly what we want. And then at 250, it should all be gone pretty much. Maybe even a bit faster, 150. You guys can tweak with that. That's what I'm gonna go with. So now we have this in place. Let's go Shift A, let's add in a camera. I'm gonna go to my camera settings and make the focal length 90. And under my output, I'm gonna make it 1080 by 1080p. And then with the camera active, press 0 on your number pad, G, middle mouse button, and zoom back out, like so, and then just get a position that you like. I'm gonna go with something like this. Let's go to our render engine, let's change it to cycles. If you have a GPU, make sure to use it. If you don't worry about it. Just stick to CPU. And under our render max samples, let's make it 50. You can set it for higher, but I'm just doing a tutorial at the moment. So now we can go Shift A, let's add in a area light, G, Z, move it up. I'm gonna make this 400 on the strength, and I'm gonna increase the size to about 5 meters. And now I'm gonna go Z, and go rendered. And then I'm gonna go Control B and just drag over the camera, just to limit the render to the camera here. And now what we can do is we can duplicate this light and rotate it in towards the scene here. And this is completely up to you. You can light this however you want. I'm just gonna go with 3 basic lights here. And I'm gonna increase the strength of this one to maybe like 500. Really depends on the scale of your scene, but this is what I have here. And maybe you can even go over to your raw properties and give this a sky texture and set the strength down to 0.2 or something. And then just try rotating your sun. You can try whatever you want. I'm gonna go with something like this. Might make it even 0.05. Okay, so now we have this lit up. Now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to do that material effect. We have the colors changing dynamically. So let's go over to our shading workspace. Let's go into our camera view. Let's press Z and go rendered. And let's select this disk over here, the canvas, and go new to create a material. And let's drag on the base color and let's type in geometry and get the geometry node. And let's drag the pointiness value into the base color. And now we're gonna go Shift A, search, and type in color, grab a color ramp and place it on this cable. Now we wanna hit the space bar so this animation plays and we get it affecting the canvas. And then when we have a shot, we can kind of drag these values closer together and do it carefully till you start to see the sort of gradient happening here, kind of like the edges. Depending on where you do this, we want to kind of just clamp these 2 values together. And now we have these 2 colors. So what we can do now is we can take this, move it up and go Shift A, search and get a color ramp, place another one here. And now we can take these 2 and we can make them whatever color we want. So I'm gonna make this one like a greenish color maybe, grab this one here and maybe, for example, make it blue. You can do whatever you want. I'm gonna go to the roughness and just bring it down to make this more reflective. And then let's grab these, this object here. Let's go new. Let's make it metallic. I'm gonna make it kind of like a coppery color. Bring this down a bit on the value. So I should have done that for the base color. So I'm gonna do that for the base color. There we go. And I'm gonna bring the roughness down a bit. For my original, I added some roughness with a noise texture. You can do the same thing. And then I also added a wood texture to this middle part, but that's up to you guys. You guys can go ahead, add as many materials as you want. But for the tutorial's sake, I'm just gonna keep this really, really basic. And then maybe select this ring here and give that a metallic material as well. And then you can select the whole stage here and just give that a bit of a darker material, maybe make it a little bit greenish to go with our theme here. And that's about it. So this is how I made mine. The only difference is with my original, I spent a little bit more time with the lighting and the materials, but this is how I made this animation. So make sure to save and also select the canvas and make sure to go to your physics, go down, and under the cache, just make sure to bake this into your blend file. So when you render it, you won't have any issues where you don't see what's happening. It's always important to bake dynamics in Blender. So that is how I made this. So I'm going to show you my original, and my original is exactly what I just showed you guys how to do. The only difference is I added in some of these plant assets, and on top of that, I just did a little bit more work on my materials. But what I'm showing you here is the exact same thing I just taught you guys how to do. So this one that you see here will be on Patreon. This is my original. I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you next time for another one. So stay safe.
Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower than low prices. And when you download the Kroger app, you can enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. Plus, you can earn fuel points to save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. So it's easy to save big. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Fuel restrictions apply.
We've locked in low prices to help you save big store-wide. Look for the locked in low prices tags and enjoy extra savings throughout the store. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
In today's Blender tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys step by step how to make a building destruction effect in Blender. Now keep in mind, I'm going to be providing this free asset here. I'll explain that in a minute. And the idea here is just to show you guys how to do this sort of building fracture destruction effect. This is not realistic for a lot of reasons. There'd be smaller particles. The physics would be handled a little bit differently, but those are all separate elements, all part of the kind of like process. And this is more just about teaching you guys how to fracture a part of a building and do this sort of simulation. And the inspiration for this is one of my favorite Blender tutorials made by CG Geek from quite a few years ago now, about 8 years. And I thought this is a really great tutorial. Definitely check it out. It's a little bit outdated, but the idea is really good. And he even uses like a effector, like something to interact with it, like a wrecking ball. But I'm going to just be doing something a lot simpler today in a newer version of Blender. And the idea here is just to make this sort of thing that you see here. And once again, this is a free building that I quickly whacked together that I'm going to be providing as well. So here you can kind of see it. So let's jump into the tutorial, and I hope you guys enjoy. So first of all, if you want to follow along with my asset, you can look in the description below, and I made this one here. It's just a quick and dirty building just for testing, for demonstration purposes. And you can just go to the link, you can put in 0 here and just download it for free. And once you have it and you open it up, this is what you're going to have once you've extracted the blend file and opened it up. And we're going to just do some basic destruction here. Once again, this is not meant to be like super high quality. This is more just teaching you guys the idea of how to use fracture to do this sort of thing. So let's select the actual building mesh you can see here. And we have one collection in this scene, and this thing here is just called plane. You can call it building or whatever if you want. And if you press Z and you go render, you can see it renders inside of cycles, which is exactly what I wanted. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually select a part of this building. So let's tab into edit mode, and we're gonna select a part that we want to destroy. Now you can see here, I've deliberately gone ahead and triangulated all of this. I just think it makes more interesting looking shards. If you don't like that, you can just press A to select everything, go Alt J, and that'll get rid of it, but I prefer to have it like that. So what we're going to do is in our front view, we're going to go into wireframe. I'm going to go to my face select option here. That's super important. And I'm going to press C, and with my selection tool, I'm just going to select bits that I really want to destroy. So I'm going to go over here, maybe a little bit over here. You know, completely up to you what you want to do. Something like that. Maybe down here. And then what you're going to do, you're going to go to your right orthographic view. And you're going to go C again, and then middle mouse button, you're going to deselect the bits that you don't want. So I'm going to go something like that. So we only have this sort of part here selected. Make sure you don't have any free hanging parts. That'll kind of break the realism. So make sure everything in here is nice and selected. Once again, with the exception of the bits here at the back. So there we have a nice selection. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit P with all that selected. We're going to go separate selection. Tab back out, and now we have this thing here as a separate selection. So what we're going to do is we're going to press M, we're going to go new collection, and let's just call it shards, and go OK. And for now, let's just hide our main collection up here, just so we can work with this shards over here. So what we're going to do to fracture this, we're going to go to object, and there are a few ways. You could actually use the cell fracture thing. I've used to do that in the past, but it's easier just to go object, and for now, let's just go over to quick effects, and let's go quick explode. And you can see it's automatically added in these modifiers for us. If we go Z and we go rendered, you can kind of, or Z wireframe, you can kind of see how it's fracturing things. And what you can do here is you go to your particles, and you can come here and change the number. I'm going to go with 700. So we got some nice small pieces. And then we're going to go to our modifier here, and let's just come and apply the explode first, and then the particles. So now if we tab into edit mode, we're going to press A to select everything. And what we're going to do, we're going to press P, and we're going to go separate by loose parts. Tab back out. And now all of the origin points are still shared. So if you go F3 and you go over here, you can type in set space origin and go origin to geometry. And now all of the origin points are all in the middle. So let's now give this some rigid body. So we're going to hold in shift and select any one of these as the main active element. And let's go over to our physics panel. Let's give this a rigid body. We're going to leave it as active, but we're going to go here to the shape and make it mesh. We're then going to go F3, we're going to go copy from, and then go copy from active. And now all of these other bits will have that same information as this first one we selected. If we now go to frame 1 and we hit the spacebar, we're going to see it kind of all falls apart like that. So it's a bit of a mess at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to frame 1 again. We're going to bring back our main collection. Let's select our building here. Let's give that a rigid body, and let's make that passive, and let's make it mesh as well. So if we go to frame 1, we're going to quickly hit the spacebar. And now you can see it's interacting with the building. It's pretty slow at this point. What we might do to speed this up a little bit, I'm going to just pause. Let's go back to frame 1. Let's just hide our main collection here. And with the shards, let's just press A to select everything, or just drag over them. Holding and shift select any single one of them. And then let's just go to the shape here. Let's just make it convex hull instead. This is going to be a little bit less accurate, but it will save us a lot of time. So we're just once again going to go F3 and then type in copy from active. And now if we enable our main collection, we go to frame 1. And we hit the spacebar, this should be a lot faster. And indeed, I can see here it is a lot faster. Okay, so before we go any further, let's also just select our floor here. Let's give that a rigid body. Let's make it passive, and we'll leave that one as convex hull. And let's go into our camera view. Let's just go Z and let's go rendered. And here you can see this is kind of what it looks like. And if you wanted to, you can go over to your scene properties. You can go to the rigid body world, and you can mess around here with the speed. I might make it something like 0.7 instead, just to make it a bit slower. But also we're going to go to the cache here, and we're going to make it 150 for the end frame. And let's go to our end frame value here, make it 150 frames. You could go longer or shorter if you wanted to. And let's quickly save, and let's go bake. And here we have it. It's now finished caching. And if you go to frame 1 and you hit the spacebar, you should be able to see it play a lot faster. The only downside here is it's still not quite real time because of performance issues. So I'm going to show you a little trick. If you go over to your output properties, you go select your desktop or whatever output destination, go to the file format and make it FFmpeg, and then under the encoding, make that an MP4. Then if you go over here to view, you can quickly go viewport render animation, and it's just going to do a quick viewport render of wherever you're positioned in the viewport. And here you can see it's done rendering. So if we quickly go over to our desktop, in my case it's the desktop, here you can see a kind of like real-time render of how this looks like. And that's a neat little trick to quickly get a preview. So what I'm going to do is, for now I'm going to leave it at that. We have this nice explosion. I'm going to go into my camera view, and I'm going to get a shot here that I like. I'm going to go to my render settings, and if you go over down to motion blur and you enable that, then you can go render and render image. And here you can see this is kind of what we have. And you can now render this out as a sequence of images, or you can render it out directly as a MP4. But this is how you can make some quick and dirty building destruction in Blender. Now this is not realistic for a lot of reasons. Like some of these pieces here are paper thin. You can kind of see into where the bricks are. You kind of have to close some of these bits off. But that's all different extra steps that I might cover in a future tutorial. This is more just on showing you guys how to do this sort of building destruction effect in Blender. What I will be doing is uploading my original one to Patreon. Exact same deal. I just spent a little bit more time getting things where I wanted it to, but exact same thing. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time for another tutorial. Welcome back to the channel, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you guys step by step how to make this text simulation. Well, it's not really text, but we're going to be spelling something with these little spheres, like these little marbles that fall into some jars. And it's actually a lot simpler than you think. This is a very beginner friendly tutorial. So I'm going to go through the whole process, and you can see here, this is what it looks like. It's actually very fun. I enjoyed making this one. And hopefully it's something you guys can follow along with and enjoy. So you can write whatever you want. By the way, I just did fun as a simple 3-letter word. It'd be interesting to see what you guys can do with it. Maybe make more jars. You know, push your computer to its limits if you want, but this is something cool. And there's probably some ways you could optimize this. I was thinking about the fact that you could only maybe fill the jars halfway towards the front. There'd be ways you could do that. But hopefully you guys enjoy it, and I will be uploading my original to Patreon. So let's jump into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. Okay, so let's go ahead and select all the default objects. We're going to press delete. We're going to go Shift A. Let's go to our mesh options, and let's add in a cylinder. So we're going to tab into edit mode now with our cylinder here active. We're going to go G, Z, and I'm going to hold in my middle or control button. If you hold in the control, once you make a movement, you can snap, and let's snap it right to the top here of, we can see this kind of red axis line. That's our floor. So now we have the beginnings of a jar. So let's turn it into something a little bit more jar looking. So we're going to press Z and go into wireframe, and let's select these top verts. We're going to go G, Z, and move them up. And now for me anyway, I'd like a jar that's about this tall. So I'm going to go something like this. And we're going to go and enable edge select. And we're going to hold in Shift and Alt and left click on this edge over here to select it as well. So they're both active. We're going to go Control B to bevel. And let's bevel about this much. And we're going to roll the middle mouse button about 2 or 3 times just to add in some segments like so. Now we're going to go to our face select option. We're going to select the top face, E to extrude, and Z to extrude up, like so. And then we're going to go E to extrude, we're going to extrude it up, S to scale to make a lip, and let's go X and delete that face. I'm going to go to my edge select, and now you can go Shift Alt left click here and left click here, Control B or Command B just to bevel. Now we have some better looking topology here. I'm going to come here, Control R, roll in some loops, and then double click. I'm going to tab back out, and in fact, let's just do one more thing. Let's just tab back in quickly, select everything. Let's click on the smooth tool here, and let's just drag that little gizmo, and let's just smooth things out a little bit. Now we're going to tab back out. Now let's give this a solidify modifier, and let's come over here. Let's crank up this thickness. I'm going to take it in, depending on the direction of your normals here. This is going to vary, but I'm going to go into the negatives here in my case, so it goes out like that, just leaving me with a bit more volume in the jar. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to apply that, and then I'm going to go here and give it a subdivision surface modifier. And yeah, you can see here at the bottom we have some weird topology because it's a non-quad. I might just select this face here and go E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude again, just to neaten it up a bit. It's still a non-quad in the middle, but at least it just looks a little bit better like this. Okay, so I'm going to right click and go shade smooth, and you can see over here, and because of the operation we did with the solidify, some of these have overlapped a little bit. I'm just going to disable the subdivision surface modifier. I'm just going to quickly go Shift Alt and just left click on this edge. I'm going to go X and just dissolve edge. And you guys may not have the same problem, but I'm going to do that since that's the issue I ran into here. But now that's looking okay. I'm going to tab back out, and let's go to our front view. And let's go Shift A, let's add in a icosphere. We're going with something like this because we don't want something too high in the topology, especially since we're dealing with so many. Then we're gonna go S to scale it down, and we're gonna go G to move it up. Now keep in mind, the more you wanna write something in the text, you wanna definitely go a little bit smaller so you have more pixels, so to speak. Look at these as pixels, if you will. So we're gonna go something like this. I'm gonna go Control A and apply that scale. Very important when we're dealing with physics. Then we're going to go Shift D, X. I'm going to move it along the X until it's next to it. Shift R to repeat that action. Let's go with about this many times. Select all of them, then go to your top. G, Y, and move them here. Make sure they don't overlap the lid of the jar. And then we go Shift D, Y, and move them up, and then Shift R to repeat that action. Once again, we don't want any overlap, so anywhere where they're close to the edge of the jar, just delete them. So I'm going to select these ones here, maybe. Something like that. I'll go into my front view. Just have a bunch of them that are over the mouth of the jar, but not overlapping. Okay, so now we have that. We're going to right click and go Shade Smooth. So we're going to go Shift D, Z with those selected, move it up to duplicate. Then we're going to go Shift R to repeat that action. And let's just go way more than we actually need. We can always delete as we're running the simulation just to get to the right volume. So I'm going to go over about this much. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these. And then holding in Shift, I'm just going to select one of them. That's going to be the active element. I'm going to go to my physics and just give it a rigid body. I'm going to leave the type as active, but under the shape, we're going to change it to sphere. So the mesh would be more accurate, but this approximate of the sphere would be a lot more efficient. In this case, it'll really work well. So we're going to go with the sphere. And yeah, it's all about what we need to do there for now. Then we're going to go F3. We're going to type in copy from, and then go copy from active. And now all of these are going to share that. So now let's just select our jar. Let's go to rigid body. Let's make it passive. And in this case, we want to make it mesh. That's really important. And make sure you are on frame 1 and then hit the spacebar. And now your simulation is going to run. So for me, I'm going to just go Z, go rendered. And then I can see in this case, the jar is filled up all the way to the top. Now, if you go back to frame 1, in your case, if this didn't work, you can just select the top view, duplicate to make more, or delete to get rid. So I might just get rid of one row and then run it again. And to me, I think that looks a lot more appropriate. I think that's just the right amount for me. So that's how you're going to get that amount right. So once you have that in place, you're going to go to frame 1 and we're going to select everything. We're going to go Shift D, X and move one over to the side. Shift D, X, move another one over to the side, like so. And for this to work, we also need to cache things. So we're going to come here to our end frame value for now, make it 100. And that's what I'm going to be dealing with my frames. You can make it less or more. That's just the length of our animation. But the important thing here is to go to our scene properties, and under the rigid body world, we're going to come down here to the cache, and we're going to come here to the simulation start, leave that at 1, but the end value, we're going to make 100. And the reason for that is because we're working with 100 frames here, and we want our simulation to be the same length as our animation. And now for this to be baked into our scene, we're going to come here and click on bake, and now it's going to bake it into our scene. Now, depending on what computer you're running, this can take a little bit of time, but it should still be faster than most types of simulation. So even on a mid-range laptop, this might just take a few minutes. So just be patient and it should be okay. Hopefully it doesn't crash. And I should have really actually saved this before we jumped into it. So make sure to save before you ever run a simulation. So yeah, I can't believe I forgot that bit. So I'm just gonna let this finish. And here we have, it's now finished, only took a minute. And if I now run this place, hit the spacebar, you can see the simulation ran. So to make things easier for now, we're gonna select these 3 jars. We're gonna press M, new collection, let's just call it jars. Go okay, so up here now we have our main collection of all of our icospheres. Then we have the jar layer. So we're gonna just hide the jars for now. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this, drag this all the way through till we come to a point where they're nicely settled. And let's come, and now we're gonna actually just press A to select all of these. Holding and Shift, select one of them to make them active, and go to your materials, click new, and then go down here, and in the viewport display for now, just so we can see. Let's change it to something like blue. Control L and then link the materials. Now all of these other ones have the same one. We can always change the material to whatever, the base color to whatever we want later. This is just so we can see what we're doing. And then we're gonna come here and you can do whatever you want, but I'm gonna go with 3-letter word like fun. So I'm just gonna hold in shift and I'm gonna roughly, as best as I can, try and select these in a way that makes it an F. And remember I said earlier, the smaller these balls are gonna be, the more of them there are. Obviously, the more pixels you're gonna have. So I'm just going to go something like this. I'm gonna try and make a U over here. And obviously this is not gonna be exactly the same for you guys because a simulation is gonna be running a little bit different depending on how exactly you place things. So now we have a U and I'm gonna go here with an N. So let's see what I can do. Trying to make an N here. I'm gonna go up to here. And like I said, this does not have to be whatever I'm doing. I'm just doing this as a 3-letter word. I'm sure you guys can take the time to come up with something a little bit more exciting than that. So I'm gonna go with that. Don't worry too much, you can always change it. Then holding in shift, select one of them to make them active. And then get rid of that material. Click new, plus to make a new material. Go down and let's make it red so we can see it. Control L and then link that material. Now all of them have it. So now what's really cool, if we go to frame 1, you can see these ones all just randomly embedded in here, but if we hit the spacebar, look at that. They all just so happen to end up where they need to be. And so we've made a spelling simulation. So now we're gonna go Alt, or actually let's just bring back our jars. Now we're gonna go Shift A, let's just add in a plane. S to scale that guy nice and big. G, Y, and move it back. S, X. Tab into edit mode, let's just select this back edge and move it up. And let's just go Control B to bevel it. And let's tab back out, right click and go Shade Smooth. And I'm just gonna go Control A and apply to scale. So now let's go into our shading workspace. Let's go into our front view, Shift A, let's add in a camera. And you guys have seen me do cameras a lot of times, so I'm just going to place my camera here. You can press 0 on your camera, on your numpad to go to camera view. And now I'm going to go to my renderer, I'm going to make it cycles. If you have a GPU, make sure to use it. And then under the renderer, let's just make it, I'm going to go with something really low because that's just a tutorial. And now we're going to go Z and we're going to go rendered. And a little tip, if you go Control B, you can drag over your camera and it limits it to the render in your camera. So now let's go Shift A. Let's add in an area light. G, Z, move it up. I'm going to increase the strength to 300. And I'm going to scale it up along the X, like so. Then I'm going to go Shift D to duplicate it, rotate it in. And then I'm going to increase the strength of this one to 700. And I'm going to go to my camera view. And another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my world settings. I'm going to go to the color tab here and just go sky texture. And then make the strength 0.5. Now you could also use a HDRI, which I did in my original, which works a lot better. But just for now, let's just keep it there. And let's now select the jar. Let's go new. And I'm just going to go into solid for now. And let's just come here and increase the transmission all the way up to 1. And bring that roughness down to almost 0. And now let's select these two and holding in shift select that glass, Control L and link that material. Now if we go Z and we go rendered, we can see that's what we have. I might bring that roughness even more down. Let's select the background, let's go new, and let's just drag this base color and type in checker and go checker texture. And let's increase the strength or the scale to 12. Let's press Z and let's go rendered. Okay, so now we have that. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select one of these glasses. Well, in fact, let's just come up here to our layers and just hide that glass layer or collection. And let's just select one of these spheres. So I'm going to select the blue one and I'm going to come here to the base color and make it nice and bright blue. And I'm going to select one of the red ones and in the base color, I'm going to make it red. Now I'm going to bring back that jars. I'm going to make sure to save somewhere. I'm going to go jars, test, save Blender file. And now I'm going to go render In fact, let's just do one more thing. Because when you're running the simulation, you're going to want to see the motion blur. So under your render, just enable motion blur. And even for your camera, you can select that and go to your camera settings, enable depth of field and select a jar, and then bring that f-stop value down a bit. So now you have a nice soft focus in the background. Okay, so that's looking better. So now I'm going to go Control S to save, render and render image, and let's see this. And there we have it. Now obviously a better HDRI and lighting will make this look more realistic, but this is it. And now what you can do is you can select under your output settings, you can go under your output, select somewhere on your computer, and then you can choose whatever format. I like to go video, and then go to the encoding and just make it an MP4 under the container. Now if you're going to do a really big processor intensive render, you probably want to go with PNGs and then render them out individually just in case you get a crash. But in this case, because it's a short animation and it doesn't take that long to render, I'm happy with rendering directly into video format, and I'm also not going to be compositing the sequences or anything like that. That's completely up to you what you're going to do. Now I would go render and then render animation, but in your case you're going to do that, but I've already done that. So here's my original, exact same thing. I've actually just added these little loops here around a jar. That's optional, but I think it just adds a little something cool to it. And this is the exact same thing. Everything I've showed you to do right now is exactly what I did in my original. And this is the one I'll be uploading to my Patreon. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you guys next time for another one. So one of those things I've tried to do for quite a while in Blender is make balloons, and I've tried a lot of different methods, but this one that I kind of came up with yesterday was really fun, and I just had so much fun just playing around with it. I spent like an hour just messing around with it, and I'm going to show you just real quick today how to set it up. So we're going to be using some basic, very basic cloth settings, and you can notice here these balloons, they just look like they want to float up, like there's helium in there. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that and how to have these strings attached, and we'll even set up a little collider here. So if you want to learn how to do this, keep watching. I just think that this is a ton of fun. So let's start by selecting our default objects. I'm going to press delete, and now we have an empty scene, and let's use a sphere to make this. I'm going to go Shift A, and let's go to our mesh options, and let's go over here, just add a UV sphere. Now, there's no need to change any of these settings. You could make the resolution a little bit higher, but I found what works better is to just leave it as it is by default. And then if you want a smoother looking balloon, you can always add a subdivision surface modifier on top of your cloth sim, and that way you don't have so much processor use. It's a little bit more efficient. So what we're going to do with this sphere selected, we're going to go into our front orthographic view. Just simply tab into your edit mode. Now let's go to our proportional editing here, and I'm just going to quickly toggle on the X-ray, and I'm just going to drag and select just a few verts at the bottom. Now let's go G, Z, and what you're going to do, you're going to drag your mouse cursor down, and because proportional editing is enabled, you can always grow your fall off by rolling your middle mouse button, or you can shrink it. So if those of you who haven't used proportional fall off, definitely give it a shot. It's very handy. So we're going to drag it down to about here. And it's looking a little bit odd. So we're going to go S, Shift, Z. Okay, now what is that actually doing? And now if you go into a different perspective and you go S, Shift, Z, you can actually see it's only scaling along the Y and the X axis, but excluding the Z, which is really handy. So you can also control the fall off. So let's make the balloon a little bit more pointy. You guys get the idea, but what we're going to do is we're going to go to our edge select option. Now we have our simple little balloon shape. And what we're going to do, I'm going to toggle off the X-ray for now, and let's select two. You could technically do this with one edge, but I'm just going to select two edges, like so. And I'm just going to go S to scale them, and then enable proportional editing again, and just scale them a little bit bigger. Okay. Now this is just a quick cheating way to do it. We want to make sure though that our cloth is connected, so we don't want to like make a separate string. So that's why we're doing it like this. We're going to go E to extrude and Z and extrude it down. Like so, and then if you go Shift R and you hold it in, you can repeat that action. And at this point, you can make it however long you want. I'm going to go something like this. I'm going to go to my vertex select. So these three bottom verts are active. We're going to go over to our object data properties. Let's go to the vertex group and click plus. And let's just call this pin, because that's going to be our pinned group. And we're going to go assign. So now these three are assigned to that group. And if you deselect everything and you select it and you go select, you should see only those three are active. We're going to press A to select everything, G, Z, let's just move it up. So our origin point's here at the bottom. You don't have to do that. I just find that's just a better way to work. We're going to tab back out. We're going to right click and go shade smooth. So now we have a very simple balloon. How do we add the physics? So we're going to go over to our physics properties. We're going to give this a cloth. And then there are a few things we want to consider. So let's go down to our shape, first of all, and let's go to pin group. Let's click here and we should see that group called pin. And if you were to now actually give this, go to frame 1, hit the space bar, you're going to see you just have your standard cloth simulation. And one of the major problems you're going to see here is obviously gravity is forcing things down. So how do we fix that? Well, I'm going to show you. We're just going to simply go down to our field weights. And here you can see we have a parameter